This meeting to order of the Lincoln County Board of Education, meeting in regular session on Tuesday, January 28th. It's 6 p.m. and we are at Lincoln County High School tonight for the board meeting. This meeting is being live streamed, and a video copy of it will be on the board's website within 5 working days. At this time, I'm going to ask board member Daniel Cartwright to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. I'm assuming no public comment tonight. Well, with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Barnett. He can introduce the presentations and reports.
This evening, we are joined by John Roy, principal of Lincoln County High School, for their annual LSIC report to the Board of Education. Mr. Roy, at your leisure.
Keep it short as possible. I've already been a long way. Also, I
One
appreciate
to Mr. Wilson, he'll be here.
the opportunity to push this on.
Can I get one for him too? Will I give the full folder too?
Yeah, give me one
Yeah.
for Mr. Mosteller.
You want me to just put it with his thing?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then we'll
that's
put them all
fine.
together.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to push this back. I know originally I had been slated to give this presentation maybe a week after I assumed the position. I think I may have given it line. There we go. So I appreciate the opportunity to meet the flexibility as well. My start here, when I was asked to do the LSIC, initially I thought, well, I'm not even sure who's on my LSIC team. All those are listed on the back page of this. We won't go over that. What I will talk about are some of the strategies we're using. Mr. Davis gave me a template to go by here, so basically what I did was just filled in the blanks. There are some things that pop out to me as I went through this information that's kind of startling, especially when we're talking about enrollment, when we're talking about, I'll talk a little bit about some credit recovery issues we're having, things like that. But I'll jump in here and I won't skip pages on you, but I might jump around the page. So we do have 47 professional staff members, 25 support staff, 2 certified Apple teachers. This enrollment was as of 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was 752, but today it is 744. We've lost a couple to homeschool. We've lost a couple who have dropped out. And that's a trend that right now is troubling to me. Our low SES is 68%. Again, these percentages are going to vary based on the enrollment we have currently, but it's generally right on. Special education population is 27%. Homeless population is 25%, and those kids in foster care are 3%.
You don't count, John, the people who are like living with grandparents though, do you?
Well, that's counted in the homeless. That's
is it?
so
Okay.
yes, if they're doubled up, in certain situations, that would count.
So every grandchild that's living with a grandparent is.
No, not every. Some of those are
If
adopted.
they're not
Oh,
by their
if they're
choice.
not adopted.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that worked.
If they're there not by their choice.
Okay.
Our mission statement here, the faculty and staff, and again, all this information I gleaned from our strategic plan, which I wasn't a part of back in the beginning of the year. I think they do those around the summer. So just getting the opportunity to dive into that and see what the staff came up with prior to my being there was eye-opening. But our mission, the faculty and staff of LCHS value a safe, structured environment built on caring, supportive relationships. We believe a learning environment that reflects rigor, active student engagement, relevance, real-world application, and differentiation to meet the needs of all students is essential. In addition, we strive to motivate students to accept responsibility for their learning, behave in a manner that is conducive to learning, and promote good citizenship in order to create contributing members of society. Now, that's a mouthful right there for a mission. But honestly, since I've been here and around these folks that I work with, I believe that's what they believe. So we'll continue to work to that end to make sure that these kids do end up in one way or another contributing to our society. Some strategies to improve test scores. I know that's the big elephant in the room with us. Every student in 11th grade has a test prep course, and every student will eventually have that test prep course for SAT and ELA and mathematics. Students rotate through that weekly. They switch it up through the course of the 9 weeks. We have an emphasis of time on task while students are present. That's key for students to be present. Student engagement is also an important component of student learning. Kids have to be here, but they also have to be engaged. A lot of times, that's the crux. We try to get kids engaged and doing the things that they ought to be doing. Of course, when we have teacher shortages and folks who maybe are not teachers by education, haven't been educated to do that, it makes it a little more difficult. Or if we have situations where subs are in the building, overall, we think that student engagement is paramount. Maintaining appropriate student attendance rates also an appropriate strategy for increasing test scores. If students are not in class regularly, they will not perform as well as they would otherwise. On the next page, you'll see our goals listed in our strategic plan. I'm going to go ahead and jump down to goal number 3. I just talked about absenteeism, and I saw this. I just looked at it today and saw that we wanted to decrease the percentage of students who are chronically absent by 20%. And I thought, man, that is a big number. But what I didn't have was last year's chronic absent numbers. I have this year's, but I didn't have last year's. And we're pretty close to on target on that. We're probably 3 percentage points right now from being on target with that 20%. So I'm pleased with that, even though it was kind of surprising to me that was such a big number and we've seen such a drop in that. So whatever we're doing right now seems to be working. We need to amp it up a little though. Goal number 1, LCHS students will increase ELA scores by 4% and math scores by 6% on the SAT school day assessment in the 2024-2025 school year. Goal number 2, teacher effectiveness will increase through the continuous use of high-yield instructional strategies, effective classroom management strategies, effective use of instructional time, differentiation, increased depth of knowledge, and formative assessments in conjunction with high levels of technology implementation in the 2024-2025 school year. In a way that I'll jump into that a little bit later, but walkthroughs, both at the school level and the county level. We have training to that end to try to increase that teacher effectiveness. Like I said, that's it's a sticking point when we've got new staff that we have a lot of turnover in staff, or we have staff that hasn't been trained formally. That's a real big piece of that puzzle. As far as our, I'm going to jump down to our PSAT, which is the test we take in October, prior to taking the SAT school day test in April. This year, and these numbers, they don't look good, but they are they're indicative of the same way they were last year. They take this in October. They haven't spent a lot of time in the classrooms yet, so it's a benchmark. It's a starting point by the end of the year. For ELA, for example, we had 34% that meets or exceeds standards. And in math, we had 6% that meets or exceeds standards. Now, if you look up in the box above that, this is our testing information from last year. Of course, we're talking about different groups, but this group here that tested and scored 56% in ELA, their numbers were in the 30s last year as well. The concerning piece for me is the math. We did drop in math, and it doesn't look promising there on that PSAT. We've been working closely with our curriculum director and Mr. Sansom to try to work out some things through the central office that we could do to increase that, as well as our rotations with our SAT prep courses. And hopefully, I know hope's not a strategy, but hopefully we'll see an increase when that time comes in April. We're on the next page. We have a curricular focus portion. And we continue to place that a high area of need in ELA and mathematics support. The improved achievement on the SAT is paramount. Our CTE instructors are working hard to ensure that 70% of their students are career ready as measured by the NOCTI test at the end of the year. That doesn't include welding because that's a whole, it's a brand new test. So everybody else has that 70% mark to hit. Something that we also focus on here is providing opportunities for kids to accelerate. We have our early college academy here with Southern. We have about 34 participating in that right now, and another 35 or 36 slated to start again this semester. So you have about 60 kids who are taking that path to take those college courses that serve as dual credit, and they'll be credited back on their transcripts as such. And I'm just learning this week that we are talking with Marshall a little bit about Grow Your Own and how we can get our own teachers from kids in our school. I'm not quite sure of the details of how that's going to work, but I know that kids who, it doesn't matter what program they're in, they would have an opportunity to take education courses to work towards a teaching degree. And we're just kind of talking early stages of that, infancy. So I'm excited about that. But as far as curricular focus, there's a track for everybody. Doesn't matter if you don't know what you're going to do, we still have that track. If you know what you want to do, we have opportunities available for you here. Every kid has a track to graduate. The big hurdle for us is getting them here, keeping them engaged. And from my perspective, we have some kids who fail early as a freshman or a sophomore, and they have difficulty making that credit up. Somehow we're going to have to find a way to accommodate these kids to maybe open up more credit recovery, maybe conversations we can have with staff about failures, those kinds of things. But when those kids reach a certain point as juniors, seniors, and they have 10 credits to make up, then guess what? It's almost impossible to do. Unless they're going to stay after their graduation date for a couple of years. And
Do any of them ever do that?
we've had a few who have.
And stayed that last year and picked up what they needed?
We just had
to
one.
Mr. Davis and I had, 5 private graduation ceremonies at the board office this year?
Well, that's good. That's 5, and that's small, but that's 5 kids that made it. Wonder what we could do to talk to them about doing that.
I'm gonna throw a number out here. Currently, we have 400 of our students, over 400, who have to have credit recovery for at least one credit
Out of how many, John?
out of 744. That's over half.
Yes, it is.
So, you've got to attack that somehow.
What are you thinking about doing?
I'm spinning my wheels.
Yeah.
Um,
Do the teachers have any ideas about what they could do extra?
I think knowing that, I don't know that they know how many kids are in credit recovery. I think just the knowledge of knowing how many kids are stacked up there would be beneficial.
I think it would too, and they would realize how many of them are in trouble.
So moving on to our culture and climate, the last time we had a culture survey was when they began work with SREB about 4 years ago. We don't have any formal instruments. Mr. Davis just gave me today a link for West Virginia Learning Environment Surveys, which is the same thing. It's a culture and climate survey, pretty much, if that's my understanding of that. We're going to do that because I'd like to see where our staff, our people think we are versus where I think we are versus what they thought they were 4 years ago. It's time for that.
Wait, you're gonna do that like this spring semester?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe sometime you could, meet with us and,
As soon as I get that information, I can share it with you.
that's good.
So while we have no formal instruments used to measure culture and climate, there has been an indication that student behaviors and overall severity of infractions has decreased according to discipline data. This trend indicates that there's a shift in what's expected of students and what they expect of each other. Students feel safe when these issues are handled, and teachers are able to teach without worry of incidents. Students still feel obligated to report dangers and injustices. My office has been full of them, and have the means to do so with anonymity. They don't, without repercussions of, we have the Stop It app. We have a lot of avenues for them to do things anonymously. LCHS has a welcoming environment, but there are still strides to be made and much work to be done. I want to call your attention to the bottom of this page for discipline. The majority of our discipline comes from 9th, 10th grade, some 11th, but mostly from the 9th and 10th grade. And the number that jumped out to me here was the number of referrals for the school year 24, 2,737. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And the total number so far this year, we're at
889.
So we're on pace to almost cut that in half, which is good. And I can speak to the severity of the referrals that I see. You have your level 4s and your level 3s. There's not nearly as many of those. And, I credit our staff, our assistant principal, Mr. Ferguson, Miss Hatfield. They do a phenomenal job when things come up, attacking it when it happens, and trying to get to the bottom of things as soon as they can. But to me, that's a monumental. We should be celebrating that for sure. Now, our out of school suspensions looks like they're on pace to stay the same. But again, overall, I feel like a lot's. And even as a central office personnel walking in here, walking through the halls last year, I could see a difference in the hallways. I could see a difference in student behaviors. And you have to have student behaviors under control before anything else in your building can take place. So I think we're on pace there. As far as just up above that, attendance. Our current daily attendance rate is 88. I think we are the lowest in the county. Older kids tend to miss a little more. Again, we're trying to attack that. Our chronic absent rate for 24 was 48%. And I just learned that today and wrote that in there for you. But today, that chronic absent rate is 31%. So like I said, we are on target to at least get kids here in the building, which is great. Additional needs and requests I put there, bathrooms. And the reason I put that, I'm not talking about the athletic field, I'm talking about the bathrooms in here. We have a problem with, just in general, kids being in the bathroom all at once. And we have a problem with vapes at our school. Sometimes those get, some vandalism, they get thrown in the toilet, we have to replace the toilet, those kinds of things. And what I'm asking or suggesting is for us to just kind of explore some alternative settings, I guess. But I've been in other schools and maybe there's a foyer where there's individual stalls and things like that where that more than only one kid can be in. I think something like that would really help. I know that that's lots of money. I know I've heard of renovations happened for $3 million in Cabell County for the same things. But we have to look at some other approach to what's going on. Even if it's just retrofitting our bathrooms with new stalls. And I'm not sure what that looks like.
Have you thought about staggering the grades and let the bathroom times come like for one grade at a time or so?
Oh, well, we use what you call Smart Pass, where kids sign up for a pass and they come out. But what the trouble spots are in times when we're in cafeteria or during transition. We have people that stop in, but sometimes they're adults are not nearby. So
Nobody's really
Uh,
close enough to be on duty at that time.
typically we do a really good job of being there, but we can't be there all the time.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just open to suggestion and, trying to figure out a way to combat what we're seeing.
How long are your lunch periods?
30 minutes.
30, just
Yep.
right at 30?
Yep.
How many bathrooms do you have here?
Stairs. 3 down here, so 4.
4.
Mr. Roy, one of the first things I suggest is the one down on CTE wing during lunches, shut it down. That concentrates everybody down in this end where you can supervise them better. That'd be one of the things. And then teacher duties. That's, I remember when my wife got here, one of her duties was to sit outside in a chair.
We have folks who are out, well, not during the whole period,
Yeah.
but that's probably something we can look.
Going back to your, looking at your credit recovery situation there, I was talking to Lynn Hurt, Sunday, actually. Sunday. Whatever day we came back from the conference. And I was talking to Lynn on the phone on the way down the road, and we started talking about things of that nature with recovery, things of it. And she was telling me about a program that Todd Alexander had done in Lincoln County or Wayne County. She's going to get some information on that for me. A couple of different items like that, so we can take a look at some things and try to come up with some solutions.
Well, and I think that is key for our kids graduating and less dropouts. I think they're not seeing the end of the tunnel there.
Well, if a child gets an 8% in the first 9 weeks, it's mathematically impossible almost for them to be successful after that. And an F is an F is an F. But we need to attack that early. We need to look at, take a little closer look at the SAP process. Are we making parent contacts? Are we reaching out to these folks when we see these kids struggling? I think that's paramount is communication to make sure that we're going to be on the right page with these guys.
Years ago, when I was principal, we had a problem with kids smoking in the bathrooms. And wasn't a problem. We used to let them just go outside and smoke, but then that was frowned upon by the State Department. So we said no smoking outside. So that just ran them into the bathrooms. And it was a real problem. Couldn't provide enough adult supervision at all the times. But we managed, and I can't remember the guy's name, he was from Boone County. We managed to put smoke sensors in those bathrooms. And the old Kmart lights that they used to have years ago, that we had those Kmart lights on the outside of the bathroom. And when the kid was smoking, that light went off and anybody around could check it immediately, but it also went off into the office and it demanded attention and we never totally got rid of it, but we just about, that was an effective way. I don't know whether that served the problem. I know last week there was someone here talking about problems in the bathroom and whatever, but, that may be something that you and Mr. Barnett want to take a look at and see if that's even an option for you, but there's nothing like in-person adult supervision. Now, I know your staff has dwindled down to the point with the loss of enrollment that you lose a lot of that flexibility as well, so. Anyway, I just offer
Is
that
there any
out there.
technology that detects vapes?
We have vape detectors.
Okay.
And they get text message, they go off that.
Yep,
Mr. Roy, get a text message, what if it goes, if
Okay.
the detector goes off?
Good, you're ahead of the.
but kids are very smart.
Yes, they are. They know how to avoid it.
Well, not
Figure out
the
ways around
test scores that I see here.
About smoking. they are.
Touche, yeah. So I'll get together with Mr. Barnett later and we'll talk about that. I'm gonna move on to the last page here. Don't want to forget our business partners, Armstrong, who does a phenomenal job with our kids. Always trying to put them out front. Swivic over here. And there are more than what I've got listed here, but the ones who are foremost and putting our kids out front are there. Caldwell Insurance, Kelly Dial State Farm, and there are a number of others. One last section there, the student safety practices. That's number one. Every morning I stand out here and watch kids walk in. We have somebody at every door watching kids walk in. But just because you watch them walk in doesn't mean something can't happen throughout the day. And, safety is the first and foremost when it comes to, starting your school day. We have periodic fire drills, active shooter drills, stop and think drills, tornado drills. For us, rigid sign in and out procedures for students and visitors when they come. If you come to pick up your student, you're not granted access to the building. We send the kid out. So that's maybe not like that everywhere. I know in elementaries, generally it's a little more, but our secretaries do a phenomenal job here of asking people what they want and who they're here for and asking for IDs if they need to and all that. So, limited access from the building exterior typically, our PRO, Jennifer Hunt, I mentioned her there. She walks around every morning, makes sure all the doors are shut. She does that a couple times a day to the outside of the building. And I mentioned the Stop It Act before, a way of reporting things that students have. And I think there's another one too that we use besides Stop It, but it allows them to anonymously let us know if something's going on. It alerts central office. They alert us if we haven't heard it. So really lots of avenues for students to let us know what's going on if they need to, and to do it without repercussions that they might think would happen. So if you have questions for me, comments, criticisms, concerns.
I've just got a couple of things here that, you and Mr. Barnett would probably want to talk over. The first thing out of the chute was the LSIC. And I know you haven't been here very long as a principal and, you've had lots of different priorities, but you have an LSIC technically, but you don't have one effectively. I would encourage you and Mr. Barnett to work on that to actually get an LSIC that's functional and will do the job it's designed to do. I continue to be frustrated with the dwindling attendance everywhere, and I know everybody all over the state is as well. But we're now looking at the only high school we've got in Lincoln County, and we've got 744 students. That's a loss of 200 students in the 2.5 years I've been on the board. I know some things are out of our control, like homeschooling and Hope Scholarship and all of that. I don't know what that answer is, but you have fewer kids here at the only high school that we've got in Lincoln County than I had at Duval 20 years ago.
But
I had 763.
families are smaller too,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
and the elementaries are smaller, the middle schools are smaller, and certainly the high
yeah, we
schools.
continue to lose enrollment all over, and it's not just us.
No,
it's
it
all
is,
over the
you're right,
state,
David,
but-
it's all over the state, but people just are not having that many kids, and ours goes down, theirs goes down too.
It is alarming to me since we get funded by student
Yeah.
enrollment. I don't know, I know Mr. Barnett and Mr. Davis last year worked hard on getting some of those homeschool kids back in the system. We probably need to continue to work that again and get those kids back in. But the other thing, a couple of months ago, may have not have been that long, your assistant principal, Kayla, and your math supervisor, Bill McLeod, came over and addressed the board about these test scores and this and that. And gave a good presentation and we enjoyed it. I pointed out during that period of time that I was concerned that the math scores were lagging so far behind the ELA scores. And some reasons were given for that, whatever. But one of the things that I said was, what kind of math do we offer? And I found out that Algebra 1 was the lowest math that we offered in high school. I don't know that we ever actually addressed that again. You may have, but I don't remember it. But I was proposing to them that, and it's not a high school. Your test scores reflect what went on in the elementary school. As what we're doing in the elementary schools, and I think we're improving greatly. As that comes up into the high school, your scores are going to go up regardless. But until then, we've got kids in high school that can't get a job because they don't have math skills when they graduate. They'll have the Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 or geometry or whatever. They'll meet all of those high scores, but they couldn't tell me what 20% of 17 is. That's functional math is what I call that. I talked with a fellow this weekend. His son graduated last year. He could get him a job as an electrician where he works, except the kid
Kid
can't
has
do the
to-
math to the level to pass the electrician's test. So it really affects lives. Now, I say all of that to say that as you begin to look at your schedule for next year, you all need to get together
And do some math.
and see what kind of functioning math we can offer these students to get them up. They have enough credits, they can take more. What you got a possible 28 credits in 4 years, correct? And only 17 is required for graduation, is that right?
24,
21?
We're gonna have
24,
another,
right, that's right, 17 is my day, 24 now. But you have a little leeway
yeah,
that kids can take some courses that
or just math.
can, yeah,
You
math
know, they really
that
do.
just gets them in there.
I think the financial algebra piece, the financial piece is going to address a lot of the concerns you're talking.
You think we could get that started before next year? I really do think that
With the 11th grade.
we really do need to get, I agree with David a lot, and being a high school principal and, you know, and looking at some of the things that we had to do when we had 4 high schools and big enrollment. But you know what? We still need those kids who are scoring a little lower in math to take math for maybe at least a year, if not math 1 and the second math 2, and then start the algebra.
Well, but I think, am I correct in saying that Algebra 1 is the lowest state
Required math
course that we give?
Yes, but it doesn't mean we can't
Well,
have it.
But the problem with that is it looks good on paper, Algebra 1. And we can graduate all these kids with
And they
algebra
can't
one,
Do a
but they can't
checkbook.
do basic math.
You're exactly right, David.
We're putting out the image that we're doing better than what we actually are.
You're right.
And
And
I'm
then
not-
we need to get real about this math course for the kids who don't score well. Well, but
That should address a lot.
but we need to make sure it does. We need to say whoever's gonna
I've
teach
used that
that.
curriculum in Cabell, and that's, so I'm.
Yeah.
Real versed at that. And
Whatever
we
you
need
all do,
basic
you
math.
all are the curriculum leaders here. But I'm telling you, we have a crisis in math, and you all know that.
Yes,
That's actually affecting lives greatly. And whether we adopt an extra credit requirement as a county, or whether
Yeah.
you all institute it as principal, you bring it before us, and I think we would certainly approve it. We just need to do something.
yeah, we need to get serious about it
it's-
and do something instead of just talk about it. That's what we need to do. I mean, we have got to help our kids who are not college bound, who are not math scholars, to be able to live a life where they can subtract their checks for groceries from a checking account. And they can't do it. And where, it's just a mess.
We have a meeting scheduled sometime, curriculum meeting, when we get the I-ready scores. I don't know when that's gonna be,
the window closes the 31st.
of January. Okay, so sometime in February, we're gonna have a curriculum meeting to discuss those scores. Mr. Barnett and I talked about, maybe having the principal, that's up to him to designate who he wants in that meeting, but I think we need to talk about that. And, we certainly need to have you somewhere in this whole process, because you will start sometime in the not too far off future of beginning to look at scheduling for next fall. And we need to plug these things in as we can do that. But we have an academic, when we're looking at, where did I see it? 14% math proficiency. I don't really have words for 14% math proficiency. We can do better than that.
Absolutely. But we're gonna have to do better instead of just talk about it. We're gonna have to put some classes in there, and the kids who aren't ready for algebra need to take those. If they need to take a math 1 and math 2, that's what they need to do. We need to do that for those kids because they probably, they're going out into the world and we're not equipping them with the skills that they need to do math. How many times do we go after high school and do algebra unless we're going to college? Seriously, each one of you ask yourself that. How many times did you do an algebra problem?
Dr. Burns, our career tech ed kids, they receive math through welding, they receive math through carpentry.
Yeah, but we need them to receive it through math.
They, there are embedded credits that are available for those students that, they can utilize. The electricity classes, they're, I can just tell you, I can just speak to what I'm used to with CTE in terms of how well that math addresses it, the things that you're talking about. When it's done with it, like Mr. Roy talked there earlier about the NOCT exam. Those are the types of things that are being addressed in those courses as well. And we have a large CTE population.
But I see many young women, girls, students who are female who aren't doing that kind of thing in CTE. And they're missing those basic math classes. And they make up a great majority of our classes. I just think we need to get real serious about looking at math.
I think if you put your juniors or even your seniors and you finagled it and took the 5th grade I-ready math assessment, I think you'd be shocked. And again, that's no reflection on you as a new principal and not really
Or
the high
anybody.
school staff, because you can only do with what comes to you. And we've had, unfortunately, years and years and years in education all over the state, well, all over the country, where we teach something, we test it,
And then we
and
drop.
we go on, and that's the end of it. With what we're doing in the, I don't know what you're calling that program, but where we're retraining these kids in the elementary schools on skills that they didn't get. That will pay a dividend. But it's a long way off
Yeah,
for
it's a while.
kids that's gonna be in high school. But anyway, I thank you. Anybody have anything else for Principal Roy?
I think you answered my questions. I appreciate you letting me interrupt you as you went along there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Roy.
Yeah,
I just
thank you,
want,
Mr.
one
Wilson.
comment that I wanted to make was about the discipline, piece. And, the reason was I came in a little bit late and I apologize for that, but I thought, last year at the LSIC, Miss Smith, she started off with those numbers and I thought, oh, maybe I missed it, but it's down here at the end, or back at the back this time. And I can't remember the numbers exactly last time. I just remember we were only in school for a few months at that time. They were like one of the first to do the LSIC last year, and the referrals were astronomical then. And we was just like, wow, in the world were so many. And it came down to like tardies, and I believe one of them was a hat thing. But basically, it came down to just faculty not being in the hallways and not, overseeing the students and making sure that people were in class, getting to class, and are following the rules. Kind of a overseeing thing, a leadership thing. And with those numbers decreasing, it looks like maybe that has been addressed and fixed. So kudos to that, I think.
I appreciate it. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I do want to say, but for the first time in, I don't know how long, we have, everybody that teaches math is fully certified. Now, two of those are retired subs, but, we didn't have that last year. This year, everybody is fully certified, so
And it makes a difference.
hopefully that will pay some
It
dividends.
will make a difference if you know what
It's
you're
not gonna-
teaching and that's your background and you teach it and you've loved it and made it your life. Those kids they'll do it. But you've got to start, I think all of us need to take this under consideration. You just can't start with algebra. It's so different than math. And I'm a math person and I know you've got to start, and some kids never get that. You know what I mean? They just don't get trigonometry and they don't get algebra 2 and they don't get all this. So in real life, you got to be able to add and subtract and work on your checkbook and figure out how much money you got. And I don't know if we're doing that. And I'm not yelling at you, John. I don't think we're doing it very well in West Virginia anywhere.
Anybody have anything else? All right, thank you, Principal
Thank you.
Roy. We appreciate you taking your time. I failed to mention at the outset of the meeting that Mr. Mosteller, Board Member Mosteller is absent tonight, but we have the other four here, present. At this time, we'll move on to item 4, approving the minutes of the January 21st meeting. Do I have a motion? and a
So moved.
second?
I'll second.
Wilson motions, Burns seconds. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's 4-0. We have maybe the smallest administrative section that we've had since I've been a board member. Only 2 items. Any discussion?
I make a motion that we approve administration.
Wilson makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Cartwright seconds. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's 4-0. Brings us to the finance section. I must confess, I have not looked over the finance section. I just got a question, Mr. Lucas, on the tax revenues coming in. Can you share any gut feelings about it?
Better.
Sorry. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. They're higher. Okay, so what we thought was going to happen is happening.
Good.
Okay. So I just need to hold my breath a little while longer.
We need to pray harder.
Okay. Okay. All right, any discussion, finance?
Make a motion to approve finance.
Was that Cartwright or
Yes.
Cartwright
Mhm.
makes the motion to approve?
Second.
Wilson seconds. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it's 4-0. Bring us to the personnel section, the blue sheet. Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve personnel.
Cartwright makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wilson seconds. All in favor of approval of personnel, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's 4-0. Brings us to the comments and concerns. Mr. Barnett.
Duval project, they were delivering lumber today for concrete forms. They delivered steel, or actually yesterday, delivered steel yesterday, for those forms, for the gymnasium. If all the planets line up, about the middle of next month, we'll start seeing, steel go in the air. That was very, very good to find that out. The air conditioning project at Hamlin Pre-K 8 is about 90% substantial completion. So they should be out of there, I'm gonna say by mid-February. We have the final walkthrough and a punch list to make sure that's gonna take place properly. There's an air handling company coming in next week to actually look at balancing those situations, those units. Once those units are installed, they have to come in, the air balancers have to come in and check those dampers and set the set points for all the coolers and the chillers to come through so that the temperature will be agreed at a certain gauge and at the proper temperature in order to heat and cool the building efficiently. So that's the next step in that process before it moves forward there. Mr. Roy touched on it today with attendance. I want to bring some attention to attendance today. We pulled the numbers in our principals meeting this morning. With the exception of Lincoln County High School, all of our schools are at 90% or better in attendance. The chronic absentee rate last year, at the beginning of last year, was 52%, I believe. It dropped to we had dropped it to 38, and now it's down to 30. So we're moving the right direction there. And I attribute that to we set up attendance teams, and we're using our community and schools people, and as well as our community contacts, our social workers, our administrators, Mr. Gaines' office. We have divided all those, our county into quadrants, and they're actually going out and making home visits to these folks that are showing up on our chronically absent list, and getting some good reasons there and seeing what's going on and getting them back to school. We've done the same thing actually with, you mentioned there earlier on about homeschooling. Those same people are actually visiting every homeschool student. And we're going to talk to them about the good things that we're doing in both the elementary, middle schools, as well as here, some of the new offerings that we're going to be having. I'm looking into working with Mrs. Hatfield. We're looking at the tourism program as well as the culinary program, to look at some different offerings for career technical education for these students to get career ready. Working with Southern, we had a discussion, actually, I talked to Ms. Hatfield today, and she and Mr. Roy have got a meeting scheduled with the math department from Southern, because some of what's happening with their math scores is that the early college academy, which are those are the kids you depend on, to look at your higher test scores, the math sequence is out of order as to what's tested. So that's a meeting that we got set up with those folks to get that right. I'm in a partnership right now with Marshall University. We've looked at this. A few other counties have done this. It's automatic admittance into the university. Getting ready to look at an MOU with them that would allow our students, any student who's a 2.5 grade point average at the end of their senior year, there won't be an application process. They'll be automatically admitted into Marshall University. That's one of Brad Smith's initiatives. So that's a program that we're going to take advantage of here to try to relieve some of our families from paying those application fees and things of that nature. So I think that'll be a good move for us. I think that's about all I have to report out.
The board members have any
I don't.
No. I've just got a couple of things here, for board members. I sent an email to all of you reminding you about the Ethics Commission report. That's, you gotta have that filed by, I think, February 1st is the deadline on that. Also, mentioned briefly about the work sessions on test scores. And I think the board would also like to have a work session on our athletic procedures from top to bottom and things that we might be able to do to help out our athletic programs as far as in-service training and that sort of thing. Not getting down and evaluating coaches. That's not what it's about, but we're looking at the overall, find out what laws and regulations restricts us and what we can do as far as making athletic contracts, things of that nature. So that's a workshop that we'd like to have. Like to have that in February.
Would we bring him here, David?
I'm sorry.
Would that person, that team or person to bring that workshop, would they come here and we'd have it at the board? Or would
Yeah,
we-
it's just a board meeting. We're discussing
Yeah.
that among ourselves.
Okay, but to do the training of it?
Oh, yeah, let me give you just a broad example. If we have a football program, for example, and before sometime when they're practicing during the season or whatever, we may have the coaches, say from Marshall University, come here and teach our coaches proper tackling
Okay,
techniques,
okay.
things of that nature.
So we would contract with someone, you
Yeah,
know, somebody who would be somewhat of an expert in that
yeah,
to train our people.
that's the idea.
Okay.
We bring people in to help us teach reading. Why can't we bring people in to help teach
Other things.
these other things?
Yeah.
The girls, I use that for the girls softball program, quite successful. Last year before last, those kids, practically every girl on that team got a college scholarship to play somewhere. Athletics was important for those people.
It is for many
And,
Americans.
Ironically, one of them went to the Air Force Academy and was, as a freshman, was their player of the year. So, we can do more, not just all academics. We can get
Do more
kids
for
going through
kids.
whatever, but
Yeah,
I'd like to just discuss that stuff in a work meeting. I know I've talked to some of you here and we're in agreement doing that. So that leaves us, pardon me. February the 7th, Mr. Cartwright and I are going to be at the School Board Association meeting. So that leaves the 14th, 21st, and 28th. What takes precedent is whenever the curriculum director can get all those scores in for the iReady and that we can discuss that. So that will take precedence over all the others. But those 3 dates, we could have 2 work sessions on a Friday during the day if that's suitable with,
what about our people who work?
well, that's Daniel and Robert. Mr. Mosteller's pretty much at home now. He's a construction worker. He's not doing that, so he can make it. It's really Daniel's the one that would be, and Jeremy gets Fridays off.
Yeah, you're correct. I don't work.
So,
If we're after 2 p.m., I can work it out.
Okay, if it's after 2 o'clock, you could get here maybe and,
With notice, I can earlier, but
okay.
I'll work around it.
okay, thank you. I'll leave that up to Mr. Barnett to work all that out. Anybody else got any other comments or concerns? If not, we're ready to entertain an idea of going into executive session for a couple of things. One is a student discipline matter, which is always executive session, and the other is a discussion with the Department of Education representatives. That in itself doesn't necessarily rise to the level of executive session,
But
but
it
the
might.
possibility exists that we'll be talking about personnel or something that, whatever. So I would like to recommend to the board that we entertain the executive session, and I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to do that.
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion.
Burns makes the motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Cartwright seconds. The time is
55.
6:55. All in favor?
Aye.
And is 4-0. We will adjourn into executive session. back in session. We've had a motion by Wilson and a second by Burns to return to regular session
Yes.
at 7:58. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, first, yeah. Anybody opposed? No opposed. It passes 4-0. In accordance with West Virginia Code 18A-5-1A and 61-2-7-2 and West Virginia Department of Ed Policy 4373, student A shall be expelled from Lincoln County Schools. All in favor? Well, first of all, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Wilson makes a motion.
I'll second.
Cartwright seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes 4-0. Anybody got anything else before we adjourn?
Well, I just thought it was kind of a wimpy little meeting for her to wait that long. Do you think I can? I mean, for her to, come up and then the other
I'll
one
make
come
a
up. and they
motion
yell.
to adjourn.
Don't do that.
I
I
second.
don't like it, David.
Cartwright
Let's
makes the
adjourn it, yeah.
motion, Wilson seconds. Time is 8:00. All in favor of adjourning until we meet at February 4th at 6 PM at Hart's PKA. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned.